The heat was the kind that makes you forget your own name. 112 degrees on the shoulder of Interstate 95, 12 miles outside Searchlight, Nevada, and Jessie Langford was singing along to a song she would never finish. She had the windows down because the air conditioning in the blue Mustang had died somewhere around Prim. She had her left arm hanging out, fingers riding the hot wind, and she was thinking about water, about shade, about the painting she would start when she got home, a desert sunset bleeding red and gold over the mesa, the kind of sky that only exists for 3 minutes before it disappears forever. She never saw the truck. The white utility vehicle crossed the median at 67 miles per hour. Its front left tire had blown 90 seconds earlier, and the driver, a man who had been awake for 19 hours, hauling electrical supplies from Bakersfield, overcorrected twice before losing the wheel entirely. The truck went sideways, then airborne, rolling twice across the divider with a sound like God tearing sheet metal with his bare hands. It landed upside down on top of the Mustang. The roof compressed to the dashboard in less than a second. The windshield turned to powder. The steering column buckled inward and pinned Jessie's legs against the seat frame. She felt things break inside her body, not heard, felt a deep, wet snapping that registered as heat before it registered as pain. Then the world went quiet. Not silent. There were sounds, hissing metal, dripping fluid, a car alarm somewhere behind her screaming into the desert air. But inside the crushed cabin, everything was muffled, like being at the bottom of a pool. Jessie blinked. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eyebrow. She could see the sky through a gap where the passenger window used to be, just a sliver of blue between twisted chrome and shattered safety glass. She tried to move her legs. Nothing. She tried again, harder. Her right foot responded with a white flash of agony. Her left foot didn't respond at all. That was when the smell hit her. Sharp, chemical, unmistakable. Gasoline. It was pooling under the wreckage, spreading across the asphalt in a dark, shimmering lake. Jessie understood with the clarity that only comes when you are very close to dying that she had minutes, maybe less. The truck's fuel line was ruptured. One spark from the exposed wiring, one shift in the hot metal, and everything within 20 feet would become fire. She screamed, not words, just sound, raw animal desperate. People were pulling over. She could hear doors slamming, voices layering on top of each other in the stunned, useless way people talk when they see something terrible and don't know what to do. A woman was crying into her phone. A man stood at the edge of the wreckage with his hands on his head saying, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," like a prayer he didn't believe in. Two teenagers were holding up phones recording. Nobody moved toward her. Nobody crawled under. Nobody came. And then someone did. Wyatt Holden had been walking the shoulder for 2 hours. He was 16 years old, 5'9", 140 pounds, wearing a torn gray t-shirt and jeans that hadn't been washed in a week. He carried a backpack with everything he owned in it, a change of clothes, a bottle of water, $9, and a photograph of a woman he barely remembered. His mother, dead since he was 4. He had been walking since Nipton. Before that, a truck stop outside Baker. Before that, a Greyhound from San Bernardino. Before that, a house in Riverside that he would never go back to. Not ever. Not for anyone. He was a runaway, a ward of the state, a name in a file that nobody read carefully enough. He heard the crash before he saw it. Metal screaming against metal, rubber shrieking, glass exploding in a shower that caught the sunlight and turned it into something almost beautiful for half a second before it became debris. He turned and watched the truck roll, watched it land on the Mustang, watched the car collapse like a crushed soda can, and then he ran, not away, toward. He dropped to his knees next to the wreckage. The asphalt was hot enough to burn through denim. He could see movement inside blonde hair, blood, a hand pressing against what used to be the side window. He shouted, "Can you hear me?" A sound came back, not a word, a moan, then a voice, female, young, terrified. "Help me, please, I can't move my legs." Wyatt got down on his stomach and looked under the truck. There was maybe 18 inches of clearance between the inverted truck frame and the crushed roof of the Mustang. Maybe. The metal was settling. He could hear it, tiny groans, small shifts. The whole structure was unstable. One wrong move and it would collapse completely, and the girl inside would become part of the wreckage. "Somebody call 911, he shouted over his shoulder. "Already did," a man said. "Kids, step back. Fire department's on the way." "How long?" 8, maybe 10 minutes. Wyatt looked at the gasoline spreading across the asphalt. He looked at the wiring hanging from the truck's engine compartment, sparking intermittently. He looked at the girl's hands still pressing against the broken window, fingers splayed, reaching for something. Anything. Anyone. "She doesn't have 10 minutes, he said, and then he started crawling. The asphalt burned through his t-shirt immediately. The metal above him was hot enough to raise blisters. He could feel the truck settling with every inch he moved forward, tiny, terrifying adjustments. That meant the whole thing could come down on him at any second. The space was so tight, he had to turn his head sideways to fit. His shoulders scraped against the truck frame above him. His chest pressed against the road below. He reached her. Her face was pale under the blood. Her eyes were wide, pupils blown, that particular kind of terrified that goes beyond fear into something primal. Her legs were pinned under the crushed dashboard. The steering column had buckled inward and was pressing against her left thigh at an angle that made Wyatt's stomach turn. "I'm here," he said. "I'm right here. What's your name?" "Jesse." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Jesse Langford." "Okay, Jesse, I'm Wyatt. I need you to stay calm. Can you do that?" "I can't feel my feet. Am I going to die?" "No," he said it without hesitation, without knowing if it was true. "No, you're not. I need you to unlock your seatbelt. Can you reach it?" Her hand fumbled for the buckle. It clicked. Her body slumped forward. "Good, that's good. Now I'm going to try to move the dashboard." He braced his back against the truck wheeled frame and pushed his feet against the crushed dashboard. He pushed until his vision went dark at the edges, until every muscle in his back screamed, until he could feel something warm running down his spine, blood or sweat or both. The metal didn't move. "It's not working," Jesse whispered. "Just go. Save yourself. Not happening." Outside, someone was shouting about the gasoline, about sparks, about how the fire department was still 6 minutes out. Another voice saying, "Somebody get that kid out of there. He's going to get himself killed." "Jesse," he locked eyes with her. "When I push again, I need you to pull your legs. Pull as hard as you can." "Ready," she nodded. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. He pushed. She pulled. Something gave, not much, half an inch, maybe less, but enough. Her right leg came free. Then the truck settled back down and the gap closed, and her left leg was still pinned. The smell was getting stronger. Not just gasoline anymore. Something electrical was burning. Wiring, insulation. Smoke was starting to curl through the gaps in the wreckage, thin and gray and getting thicker. "One more time," Wyatt said. "You ready?" Before Jesse could answer, they both heard it. Engines. Not one, not two. A wall of them. Deep, throaty rumbling growing louder with every second. The sound filled the desert like rolling thunder bouncing off the rock formations and the blacktop and the open sky. until it was everywhere, inescapable, a vibration you felt in your chest before you heard it in your ears. "What is that?" Jesse whispered. Wyatt twisted his head. Through the gap under the truck, he could see the highway. Motorcycles, dozens of them, chrome catching the sun, leather and denim, patches on their backs. They were pulling up in a line on both sides of the wreck, two abreast, three abreast, filling the shoulder and the breakdown lane and part of the right travel lane. Engines cutting off one by one in a sequence that sounded like a heartbeat slowing down. Boots hit pavement, a lot of boots. A voice cut through everything else, rough, commanding, the voice of a man who had spent his life being obeyed. "Where is my daughter?" Jesse's hand grabbed Wyatt's arm so hard her nails broke skin. "That's my dad," she said. "Oh God, that's my dad." The boots came closer. A face appeared at the gap. An older man, 50s weather-beaten, scarred across the left cheek, gray threading through a dark beard. His eyes were the color of gunmetal. And they moved across the scene with the calm assessment of someone who had seen violence before and knew how to navigate it. "Jesse, Dad." Her voice cracked wide open. "Dad, I'm stuck. I can't get out." The man's expression didn't change. Not a flicker. He looked at Wyatt. "Who are you?" "Wyatt, I'm trying to get her free. Can you? I don't know." One nod. Then the man stood and his voice carried across the highway like a cannon shot. "Chains. Get me every chain we've got. Somebody find the gas line on this truck and kill it before this whole thing lights up." Wyatt heard movement behind him, fast, organized, efficient. These weren't random bikers who happened to pull over. They moved like a unit, like men who had done hard things together and knew how to do them again. The man bent down again. His face filled the gap. "Kid, I'm Gunner, Jesse's father. You got room for one more under there?" "No. Too tight, too unstable. More weight and the whole thing comes down." "Then tell me what you need." "I need the truck lifted. Just an inch. Just enough for her to pull her left leg free." Gunner was quiet for 3 seconds. His eyes moved across the underside of the truck, calculating weight, structure, physics. Then he said, "How much you think this truck weighs?" 3 tons. Maybe 4. A voice from behind Gunner. "We've got 42 bikes here, boss. More coming." Gunner looked back at Wyatt. "You ever see 8 Harleys pull a truck?" "No, you're about to." He disappeared. Wyatt heard chains rattling, men shouting instructions, the heavy clink of metal connecting to metal. Someone was wrapping chains around the truck's front axle. Someone else was securing them to the rear. Jessie's breathing was getting shallow. Her grip on Wyatt's arm was weakening. "Stay with me," he said. "I'm trying. Tell me something. Anything." "What? When you're not trapped under a truck?" "What do you do?" She tried to laugh. It came out as a cough. "I paint. Watercolors." "Yeah. What do you paint?" "Deserts, sunsets, sometimes people." Her eyes were going glassy. "My dad says I'm good." Outside, Gunner was giving final orders. 4 chains on the front axle, 4 on the rear. Wrap them twice. If one slips, we lose everything. A different face appeared at the gap. Younger man, tattoos running up his neck, eyes sharp and serious. "Kid, when we pull, you push. Don't let her move until the truck is clear. If it slips back, it'll crush both of you." "I understand." The man nodded once. "You got guts, kid. I'll give you that." He disappeared. Engines started. Not just 8. It sounded like a dozen, maybe more, revving in unison, a controlled, measured roar that built slowly like a wave. Gunner's voice cut through, steady, no jerking, smooth and even. "On my count. 3, 2. Wyatt braced his back against the truck frame. Every muscle locked. 1. Pull. The engines roared. The chains went taut with the sound like a guitar string about to snap. The truck groaned a deep structural protest and then it moved. Not much, an inch, maybe less, but it was enough. Now Wyatt shouted, "Pull now, go!" Jessie pulled. Her left leg came free with a wet sound that made Wyatt's stomach lurch. She screamed pain, relief, terror, all of it compressed into a single note that echoed under the wreckage. Go, crawl toward my voice. Move. She scrambled. He could hear her moving past him, hands and knees on hot asphalt, gasping. Then she was beyond him, and hands were reaching in, grabbing her shoulders, pulling her out into the sunlight. Wyatt started to follow. Then he smelled it. Not smoke anymore. Fire. The electrical wiring had ignited. Flames were licking up through the engine compartment of the truck, orange and blue, hungry, spreading fast. The heat doubled in an instant. The air under the wreckage turned into something you couldn't breathe. Gunner's voice sharp as a blade. Kid, move your ass. Now. Wyatt scrambled backward. His shirt caught on something, a jagged piece of metal that tore through the fabric and into his back. He yanked free, kept moving. Hands grabbed his ankles and pulled hard. He came out into the sunlight, blinding after the darkness under the truck. Someone hauled him to his feet. Someone else threw a blanket over his shoulders. Everybody back, Gunner shouted. She's going to blow. The bikers moved as one, fast, disciplined, experienced. They dragged Jessie. They dragged Wyatt. They cleared the area in seconds. They were 50 feet away when the truck exploded. The blast knocked Wyatt to his knees. A wall of heat rolled over him. Debris rained down, chunks of metal, burning rubber, shattered glass. A piece of the truck's bumper landed 10 feet from where Jessie lay, on a blanket surrounded by bikers who shielded her body with their own. Then something like silence. Not real silence. Sirens in the distance. People talking. The crackle of fire consuming the wreckage. But after the explosion, everything else felt like silence. Wyatt sat on the asphalt. His hands were shaking. He looked at them. They were covered in blood, his Jessie's, he couldn't tell. His back burned where the metal had torn his skin. His lungs felt scorched. His ears were ringing. Gunner was kneeling next to Jessie. She was conscious, crying, talking fast. I thought I was gonna die. The dashboard came down and I couldn't move, and I thought that was it. And then this kid, Dad, he crawled under. He didn't even know me, and he crawled under. Gunner looked up. His eyes found Wyatt across 20 feet of broken asphalt and scattered debris. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. Then Gunner stood, walked over, looked down at the boy sitting on the ground with shaking hands and blood-soaked clothes. What's your name, kid? Wyatt. Wyatt Holden. Where you from, Wyatt Holden? Nowhere. Gunner's eyes narrowed. He had seen enough of the world to know what nowhere meant. It meant running. It meant no one waiting at home. It meant the kind of alone that doesn't have a bottom. You got people, someone we can call. No. No family. No. Gunner nodded slowly. He held out his hand. Wyatt took it. Gunner pulled him to his feet with a grip that was firm and steady and warm. You saved my daughter's life, Gunner said. His voice was low, meant only for Wyatt. You understand what that means. I just couldn't leave her. Most people would have. I'm not most people. Gunner almost smiled. Almost? No, I don't think you are. The ambulances arrived 4 minutes later. Paramedics swarmed the scene, triage tags and backboards and IV bags. They loaded Jessie first. She kept looking back at Wyatt as they lifted her onto the stretcher, kept calling out, "Is he okay? Please, somebody check on him, please." Then they came for Wyatt, a paramedic shining a light in his eyes, possible concussion, burns on his back 2nd degree, lacerations on his hands and arms. They wrapped his wounds, gave him water, asked him questions. He answered without really hearing. They took him to Desert Springs Hospital. Gunner rode beside the ambulance on his Harley, and behind him in a line that stretched back half a mile 42 motorcycles followed. A rolling thunder of chrome and leather and something that looked from the outside a lot like loyalty. The hospital was not prepared. A highway crash, a truck fired 2 patients, and now a motorcycle club filling the emergency entrance. Security called for backup. Gunner ignored them. He walked straight to the admissions desk. "My daughter, Jessie Langford. Where is she?" The nurse checked her computer. "Trauma 3. But sir, only family is allowed. I am family. I understand. But the rest of these gentlemen are staying right here in this lobby until I know my daughter is okay. You got a problem with that?" The nurse looked past Gunner at the bikers, some leaning against walls, some sitting in plastic chairs that looked too small for them, all of them watching her. "No, sir. No problem." Gunner turned to Wyatt. "You good here?" Wyatt nodded. His head was swimming. Everything felt far away, like he was watching himself from outside his own body. Gunner put a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you. I mean that." Then he was gone through the double doors. Wyatt sat in a chair. A nurse came over, kind-faced, tired eyes. "Let's get you checked out, honey." "What's your name?" "Wyatt Holden." "Age, 16. "Parents' names?" "Don't have any." The nurse looked up from her clipboard. "Guardian, I'm in the system. Foster care." "Okay. Who's your caseworker? We need to notify them." Wyatt's stomach dropped. He had forgotten. Of course they would run his name. Of course they would find out. "I don't remember," he said. "That's okay. We can look it up. You just relax." She left. Wyatt sat there surrounded by bikers, bleeding, burned, and knowing that in about 10 minutes someone was going to find out exactly who he was, where he'd come from, why he'd been walking a desert highway with $9 and no ID, and then everything was going to fall apart. An older biker sat down next to him, gray beard, kind eyes, a patch on his vest that said, "Cole, you did good today, kid. Thanks." "Jessie. She's a good girl. Smart. Artistic. She's got her whole life ahead of her because of you. I just did what anyone would do." The man shook his head slowly. "No, you didn't. I was there. I saw those people, they standing around with their phones out filming a girl dying. You were the only one who moved." Wyatt didn't know what to say. He had never been told he mattered before. Not like that, not by a stranger who had no reason to lie. The man stood. "You need anything, you let us know." 30 minutes later, a doctor came through the double doors. "Family of Jessie Langford." Every biker in the lobby stood up at the same time. The doctor blinked. Immediate family." Gunner appeared behind her. "She's stable. Broken leg, 3 broken ribs, but she's alive. She's awake. And she wants to see Wyatt." All eyes turned to the boy in the bloody t-shirt. "That's you, kid," someone said. "Go on." Wyatt followed Gunner and the doctor through the doors. Jessie was in a bed, bandaged IV in her arm, face bruised and swollen. But she was smiling. "Hey," she said when she saw him. "Hey, they said you saved my life. We saved each other." She laughed, then winced. "Don't make me laugh. It hurts." Gunner stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, watching them with an expression Wyatt couldn't read. "I don't even know how to thank you," Jessie said. "You don't know me. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." "Wait." Wyatt thought about it. Thought about the truth of it. Because someone should have done it for me once, he said, and nobody did. The room went quiet. The machines beeped. The air conditioning hummed. Outside the door, boots shuffled on linoleum. Then Gunnar said, "Wyatt, can I talk to you outside?" They stepped into the hallway. Fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic. Gunnar crossed his arms. "The nurses are asking questions about your family, your guardian. I know. You gonna tell me the truth?" Wyatt looked at the floor, linoleum tiles scuffed and worn. He counted 4 before he spoke. "I ran away 3 weeks ago from a foster home in California." Why? Because the man who was supposed to be taking care of me wasn't. Gunnar's jaw tightened. "He hurt you?" "Yeah, how bad?" Wyatt reaching back and pulled up his shirt. The burns from the truck were there, fresh, raw, blistered, but underneath them, older marks. Cigarette burns, round and deliberate, scattered across his lower back. Belt marks raised and ridged, layered on top of each other like geological strata. A rectangular bruise, yellow-green and fading, the exact shape of a frying pan. Gunnar's hands curled into fists at his sides. His knuckles went white. A vein stood out on his temple. His name. "Vernon Briggs. But it doesn't matter. I'm not going back." "You got a warrant?" "Probably. They're going to find it as soon as they run your name." "I know. And they'll send you back." "I know." Gunnar was quiet for a long time. He stared at the wall, and Wyatt could see something working behind his eyes. Calculation, anger, something else. Something that looked like recognition. Then Gunnar said, "Not if I have anything to say about it." "What?" "You saved my daughter's life, my little girl. The only thing in this world that matters to me. You did it knowing that truck could blow, knowing you could die. You're 16 years old and you made that choice. Anyone would have." "No, they wouldn't have. I've seen men twice your age freeze in the face of less. You crawled under 3 tons of burning metal for a girl you'd never met." Gunnar put his hand on Wyatt's shoulder. "You're not going back to that house. I don't care what the law says. I don't care what the state says. You're under my protection now. You can't just—" A nurse came around the corner. "Mr. Holden, we need you to fill out some paperwork." Wyatt looked at Gunnar. Gunnar looked at the nurse. "I'll help him with that." They went to the desk. The nurse slid a clipboard across. "We just need contact information, and we'll need to call your caseworker." "His caseworker is being reassigned," Gunnar said. "I'm his temporary guardian." The nurse frowned. "Do you have documentation?" "It's being processed." "Sir, I can't release medical information without—" Gunnar leaned forward. His voice stayed calm, quiet, but there was steel underneath, the kind you don't argue with, the kind that doesn't need volume to make its point. "That boy saved my daughter's life. He's 16. He has no one. And he's not leaving this hospital without someone to watch over him. So either you accept my word that I'm taking responsibility for him, or we're going to have a very long conversation about patient rights and emergency guardianship law. Which would you prefer?" The nurse looked at Wyatt, then at Gunnar, then at the 40-plus bikers visible through the doorway. "I'll note that you're taking responsibility for him. Thank you." She left. Wyatt stared at Gunnar. "Why are you doing this?" "Because it's right. You don't know me. I know enough." A police officer walked into the lobby. He looked around, saw the bikers, and his hand moved to his radio. Gunnar saw him too. He said quietly, "Whatever happens next, you stay close to me. Understand?" "Yeah." The officer walked to the desk, asked the nurse something. She pointed at Wyatt. The officer came over. "Wyatt Holden." "Yeah." Standard questions first. The crash. What Wyatt saw. What he did. The officer wrote everything down, nodding professional. Then he said, "Can I see some ID?" Wyatt's heart stopped. "I don't have any. No driver's license. School ID, no. How old are you? Where are your parents? Who's your guardian?" Gunner stepped forward. "I'm his guardian. Are you related?" "Not yet." The officer looked confused. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm in the process of becoming his legal guardian." "Do you have documentation?" "It's being filed." The officer stepped away, spoke into his radio, waited. His expression changed, that subtle shift that happens when a routine call becomes something else. He came back. Wyatt Holden, age 16, reported as a runaway from foster care in California. "Active warrant for he's with me," Gunner said. "Sir, this is a police matter. He's a minor who saved a life today. A hero. And you want to arrest him. I don't want to do anything, but I have a legal obligation to what? Drag a 16-year-old kid back to an abusive home." The officer's face hardened. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to step back." Gunner didn't move. The lobby went very quiet. 40 bikers stood up. Not aggressive, not threatening, just standing. Present. A wall of leather and denim and unwavering intent. The officer's hand moved to his weapon. Gunner saw it. His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. "Don't. That boy is not leaving this hospital in handcuffs. Not today." More police were arriving. Wyatt could hear sirens outside, and then Jessie's voice came through the doorway. She had gotten out of bed. She was on one leg holding the IV stand for balance, her cast dragging behind her, a nurse trying to guide her back. But she had her phone in her other hand, and she was recording. "My name is Jessie Langford," she said loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "3 hours ago, I was trapped under a burning truck on Interstate 95. This boy," she pointed the camera at Wyatt, "crawled under that truck and saved my life. He risked everything for a stranger. And now the police want to arrest him and send him back to a man who beats him." She turned the camera toward the officers. "I want everyone watching this to see what's happening right now. I want you to see who this country protects and who it throws away." Gunner stared at his daughter. Something flickered across his face, surprise, pride, something fierce and tender at the same time. The police lieutenant who had just arrived looked at the phones, looked at the bikers, looked at the cameras, and made a calculation. "Mr. Langford, we can discuss this. There's nothing to discuss," Gunner said. "Wyatt Holden is under my protection. He's not going anywhere until we sort this out. Legally, in a courtroom, with a judge. That's not how this works. Then change how it works." The standoff lasted 3 hours. More police arrived. More bikers arrived. The hospital lobby became a circus. News vans showed up. Reporters asked questions. Jessie's video was already online, ready spreading, already being shared by people who had never met her and never would. And somewhere in California, a man named Vernon Briggs saw the boy's name on television. He sat in his living room in a house that looked warm and welcoming from the outside, and he picked up the phone. The call came through to the California Department of Child and Family Services at 11:43 p.m. Vernon's voice was smooth, concerned. Everything a worried foster parent should sound like. "I'm calling about Wyatt Holden. I just saw him on the news. Thank God he's safe. I've been so worried." The case supervisor, a woman named Patricia Voss, pulled up the file. "Mr. Briggs, we're still gathering information about the situation. Can you confirm you're his current legal guardian?" "I am. He ran away 3 weeks ago. I filed a missing person report immediately." Patricia saw the report. "Filed the day after Wyatt disappeared. Everything looked legitimate. Mr. Briggs Wyatt is currently at Desert Springs Hospital in Nevada. There's been a complication. A motorcycle club has gotten involved. They're claiming protective custody." Silence on the line. Then a motorcycle gang has my foster son. They're not technically holding him, but they're preventing us from executing the interstate transfer. This is unacceptable. Vernon's voice shifted, still smooth, but with an edge underneath. That boy needs structure, stability. He's troubled, Ms. Voss. He has behavioral issues. That's why he ran. What kind of behavioral issues? Aggression, defiance. He's been in 4 foster homes in 2 years. I'm the only one who's been able to work with him. I see. I want him home, where he belongs. Whatever legal steps are necessary, I'll take them. We'll be in touch, Mr. Briggs. Patricia hung up, stared at the file. Something felt off, a frequency she couldn't quite identify, a note that didn't harmonize with the rest. But the paperwork was clean. The reports were filed, and the law was clear. Wyatt Holden was property of the California foster system, and Vernon Briggs had every legal right to bring him home. Back at the hospital, Jessie had been forced back to bed by 2 nurses and her father. But she hadn't stopped. She was on her phone reading the comments on her video, watching the share count climb, already thinking about the next move. Wyatt sat in a chair in her room. Gunnar had convinced the staff to let him stay. "You should sleep," Wyatt said. "Can't. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back under that truck. I know the feeling." She looked at him. Not at his face, but at his arms, where the sleeves of the hospital gown had ridden up. Old scars, thin white layered. "You've got scars," she said. "Old ones." Wyatt pulled the fabric down. "From your foster father, some of them. How long were you with him?" 8 months. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "I did. 3 times. They investigated. He said I was lying, making it up for attention." They believed him. Jessie's hands curled into fists on the blanket. "That's wrong. That's so deeply, completely wrong." "Yeah, my dad won't let them take you back. You know that, right? He can't stop them. Not legally. You don't know my dad." The door opened. Gunnar walked in. His face was tight, the muscles around his jaw working. "We've got a problem." Wyatt stood. "California CPS just filed an emergency interstate transfer order. They're sending someone to pick you up when?" "Tomorrow morning." The floor dropped out from under Wyatt's feet. "Tomorrow. They're also threatening to press kidnapping charges against me if I interfere." Jessie pushed herself up in bed. "Dad, you can't let them." "I'm not." Gunnar looked at Wyatt. "But we need to do this smart, legal. I've got a lawyer coming. Her name's Colleen Merritt, best family law attorney in Nevada. I don't have money for a lawyer." "You're not paying." "I am. You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Gunnar sat down. "Wyatt, you saved my daughter's life. That means something. In my world, that means everything. So we're gonna fight this. But you need to be straight with me. Everything that happened in that foster home. Every detail. Can you do that?" Wyatt's throat felt tight. "It's not just talking. They'll want proof, evidence. You have scars. Scars heal. And he'll say, 'I got them somewhere else.' He's good at this. He's done it before. Before you." There were 2 other kids. Both of them reported abuse. Both times nothing happened. What happened to them? They got moved. Different homes. You remember their names. One of them, Trent. Trent Holloway. He was there right before me. Gunnar pulled out his phone, started typing. "I'm going to find him, and when I do, he's going to tell his story. He won't want to. Nobody wants to relive that. I'll ask. That's all I can do." Jessie spoke from the bed. Her voice was steady, certain. "I'll go with them. When they find Trent, I'll go." Gunnar looked at his daughter. Her leg was in a cast. Her face was bruised. She had tubes in her arm. "You're in a hospital bed. I'll be out tomorrow. and I'm going. Something passed between father and daughter, a negotiation that happened without words. Gunnar exhaled. We'll see. But Jesse's eyes said it was already decided. Gunnar stood. Get some rest. Both of you, tomorrow's going to be a long day. He left. Jesse looked at Wyatt. He's going to fix this. He can't fix the law. Then he'll break it. That'll just make things worse. Maybe. But you'll be free. Wyatt didn't answer, because he'd been free for 3 weeks, and freedom without safety was just another kind of prison. At 6 a.m., Colleen Merritt walked into the hospital. She was 45, wearing a charcoal suit that fit like it had been cut specifically for courtroom warfare, carrying a briefcase that cost more than everything Wyatt had ever owned combined. Her eyes were sharp, assessing the kind of eyes that missed nothing and forgave less. She sat down across from Wyatt in a conference room. Gunnar stood by the door. Wyatt, I'm Colleen. I'm going to ask you some hard questions, and I need honest answers. Can you do that? Yeah, good. Tell me about Vernon Briggs. Wyatt told her everything. The first month, normal, fine. Vernon was friendly, made dinner, asked about school. Then little things started changing. Comments about Wyatt's posture, his attitude, the way he chewed. Criticism that started small and grew. Then the punishments, missing meals, standing in the corner for hours, cold showers at midnight. Then worse, did he ever hit you? Yes. With what? His hands, a belt, once with a frying pan. Colleen didn't flinch, just wrote, Did you report this? 3 times. To whom? My caseworker, Mrs. Patterson. What happened? They investigated. Vernon said I was lying, making it up for attention. They believed him. Why do you think that is? Wyatt looked at his hands. Because he's good at it. He knows how to talk to people, how to make them see what he wants them to see. He volunteers at the church, coaches Little League. Everybody in the neighborhood thinks he's a saint. Did he ever threaten you? Tell you what would happen if you told? He said if I reported him again, I'd get moved to a group home. Said those places are worse. Said I'd get eaten alive. Is that why you ran, partly? What's the other part? Wyatt's voice got quiet. There was a new kid, younger, 12 years old. And I saw Vernon looking at him the same way he used to look at me, before it started. Colleen stopped writing. What was the kid's name? Noah. Noah Kepler. Is he still in that home? I don't know. I think so. Colleen looked at Gunnar. Something passed between them, an understanding that this was bigger than one boy, bigger than one case. She turned back to Wyatt. Here's the situation. California has a legal right to bring you back. You're a ward of their state, but we can fight it. We can file for emergency protective custody here in Nevada. We can request a hearing. How long will that take? Could be days, could be weeks. And in the meantime, you stay here under Gunnar's supervision. California's not going to accept that. No, they're not. Colleen closed her briefcase, which is why we're going to court today. The hearing was at 2 p.m., small courtroom. Judge Morrison presiding, 63, former prosecutor, no patience for theatrics. Wyatt sat at the petitioner's table with Colleen. Gunnar sat behind him. The gallery was full of bikers who had put on clean shirts and combed their hair. Across the aisle sat the California State Attorney Gerald Pike and the CPS agent Darlene Cross, a woman in her mid-50s with tired eyes and 20 years of doing a job that aged you in dog years. Judge Morrison looked at the room, took in the leather, the patches, the size of the men filling every seat. This is a lot of leather for a custody hearing, he said. A few quiet laughs. Let's get started. Colleen made her case. Vernon Briggs, 6 years of fostering, 3 abuse complaints, all investigated, all dismissed, a pattern, medical records, testimony. A boy who risked his life to save a stranger and was now being threatened with return to his abuser. Pike countered, behavioral issues, a history of dishonesty, 3 investigations that found nothing, a troubled teen manipulating the system, back and forth, point and counterpoint, the machinery of law grinding forward with Wyatt's life in the gears. Then Judge Morrison asked Darlene Cross for her professional opinion. Darlene stood slowly. She looked at Wyatt, at Gunner, at the bikers. Your Honor, I've reviewed the file. The investigations were thorough. There's no concrete evidence of abuse. But everyone leaned forward. But something feels off. I've met Vernon Briggs, spoke to him this morning. He said all the right things, but I've been doing this job for 20 years, and I've learned to trust my gut. And my gut says this kid is telling the truth. Pike's face went red. She was supposed to be on his side. Judge Morrison leaned back, looked at his notes. Then he made his ruling. Temporary emergency custody to Gunnar Langford. 30 days. Full investigation, independent, Nevada-based. If evidence of abuse is found, permanent guardianship proceedings. If not, Wyatt goes back to California. The gallery erupted. Gunnar's hand landed on Wyatt's shoulder. You're safe for now. Outside the courtroom, the celebration swirled around them. Handshakes back, slapped someone pressing a bottle of water into Wyatt's hand. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Static. Then a voice. Smooth, familiar. Cold enough to freeze blood in August. Hello, Wyatt. His body went rigid. That was quite a performance in court today. Very moving. How did you get this number? I have my ways. Vernon Briggs' voice was calm, almost friendly, the way a snake is calm before it strikes. You think you've won. But you haven't. I've been doing this a long time. Longer than you, longer than that lawyer, longer than your biker friends. I'm not coming back. Yes, you are. Because in 30 days, when they can't find any evidence, you'll be right back where you belong. Under my roof, under my rules, they'll find the evidence. What evidence? The scars. Those could be from anywhere. The other kids, they won't talk. They never do. You're alone, Wyatt. You've always been alone. Wyatt's hands shook. I saved someone's life. And that's admirable. Truly, but it doesn't change the facts. You're a ward of the state. You're my responsibility, and I always take care of what's mine. The line went dead. Wyatt stood there. The celebration continued around him, but all he could hear was Vernon's voice. That smooth, certain, terrifying calm. Gunnar noticed. Crossed the parking lot in 3 strides. What's wrong? He called me. Vernon. Gunnar's expression darkened. What did he say? That he's going to win. That I'm going back. Gunnar took the phone, looked at the number, his jaw set. I'm calling Colleen. This is harassment. Then he looked up, raised his voice. The parking lot went quiet. 40-plus bikers turned to face him. Listen up. We've got 30 days to build a case. 30 days to find every kid who was ever placed with Vernon Briggs. Every story, every scar, every piece of evidence the system chose to ignore. Can we do that? Someone shouted. Hell yes. Another. Where do we start? Gunnar looked at his daughter. Jessie had made it outside on crutches, phone in hand, face set with a determination that made her look exactly like her father. We start with Trent Holloway, Jessie said. He's in Reno. I already found him. Gunnar looked at her. When did you, while you were in court? She held up her phone. I'm not just going to sit in a hospital bed and wait. Something shifted in Gunner's expression. Pride, worry, the recognition that his daughter was becoming someone he couldn't control and didn't want to. Then we ride tomorrow, he said, Jesse and me. We find Trent. We get his story. And if he won't talk, someone asked. Jesse's voice was steady. Then I make him understand why he has to. Wyatt watched her. This girl who had been trapped under a burning truck 12 hours ago, who had broken bones and bruises and every reason to lie in bed and recover. And instead, she was standing in a parking lot full of bikers planning a war. She caught his eye, held it, nodded once, a promise. Unspoken, but absolute. We're going to find every kid Vernon Briggs ever hurt, she said, and we're going to give them what you never had. What's that? Someone asked. Jesse's voice carried across the parking lot, across the desert, across the space between what the world was and what it should be. A voice, and an army to back it up. The bikers roared, but Wyatt felt the weight settling on his chest because he knew something they didn't. Vernon Briggs wasn't just good at hiding evidence. He was good at making people disappear, not with violence, with paperwork, with phone calls, with the quiet, systematic machinery of a system built to protect itself. And somewhere in California, a 12-year-old boy named Noah Kepler was sitting in a dark room holding the collar of a dog who would never come home, learning exactly what that machinery could do to a child who asked for help. The clock was ticking. 30 days. And Vernon Briggs had been playing this game for 6 years. The first kid they found was Trent Holloway, 20 years old, living in a studio apartment in Reno, working nights at a warehouse loading docks, unloading trucks for $11 an hour, sleeping through the days with blackout curtains and a white noise machine, because the quiet was worse than the noise. He hadn't talked to anyone from the system in 3 years, hadn't talked to anyone about anything that mattered in longer than that. Jessie knocked on his door at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. She had driven up from Nevada with Gunner 3 hours on the highway, with her cast propped on the dashboard and her crutches wedged behind the seat. Gunner had wanted to go alone. Jessie had said no. Gunner had wanted to bring more bikers. Jessie had said no to that too. Too much leather, she told him. He'll see a wall of patches and close the door. He needs to see a person. So it was just the two of them, father and daughter, standing in a hallway that smelled like carpet cleaner and microwaved food. Trent opened the door 6 inches, chain still on. He was thin, wiry, with the kind of eyes that never quite landed on anything because landing meant staying, and staying meant being trapped. Yeah. Trent Holloway. Who's asking? My name's Jesse Langford. This is my father, Gunner. I need to talk to you about Vernon Briggs. Trent's face went white. Not red, not flushed. White. The blood drained out of him like someone had pulled a plug. I don't know anyone by that name. Yes, you do. You lived with him for 11 months, 2 years ago. I don't want to talk about it. Jessie shifted on her crutches. Her leg ached. Her ribs ached. Everything ached. But she held Trent's gaze through the 6-inch gap. A kid named Wyatt Holden is trying to get away from him. Same situation you were in. We need your help. Trent's hand was shaking on the door. I can't. Jessie pulled out her phone, showed him a photo of Wyatt, the one from the hospital, bandaged hands, burns on his arms, looking at the camera with eyes that held nothing and everything at the same time. This is him, 16 years old. He saved my life 3 days ago, crawled under a burning truck to pull me out. And now the state of California wants to send him back to Vernon Briggs's house. Trent stared at the photo. Something moved behind his eyes, a recognition that went deeper than memory. It was cellular, the body remembering what the mind had spent years trying to forget. Please, Jessie said, just talk to us. That's all I'm asking. Trent looked at the photo for a long time. Then he closed the door. Jesse heard the chain slide. The door opened. 5 minutes. That's all you get. They sat in his small kitchen, a table for one, a single chair that Trent gave to Jesse. He leaned against the counter. Gunnar stood by the door, arms crossed deliberately, making himself smaller, less threatening. He understood his role here: support, not intimidation. It was Jesse who asked the questions. When were you placed with Vernon? March 2023. How long did you stay? 11 months. Then I got moved. Why? Trent's jaw tightened. The muscles in his neck corded. I reported him for abuse. What happened after you reported him? They investigated. He said I was lying, making it up because I didn't like his rules. Wanted attention. Did they believe him? Yeah, but they moved you anyway. Yeah, I think they knew. Deep down, they just couldn't prove it, or didn't want to. Jesse leaned forward. Trent, we're building a case, a real one, with a lawyer who actually cares. But we need witnesses, people who can tell the truth about what happened in that house. It won't matter. He always wins. Not this time. Trent laughed. It was bitter, hollow, the laugh of someone who had stopped believing in outcomes a long time ago. You don't know him. He's smart, careful. He knows exactly how far to push, how to leave marks that fade, how to make you think it's your fault. Jessie was quiet for a moment. Then she said something she hadn't planned. He tried to kill me too. Different method, same intention. Trent looked at her. What? 3 days ago, a truck landed on my car, crushed it flat. I was trapped, legs pinned, gasoline everywhere. And while I was lying there waiting to die, I had this thought. She paused. I thought about all the people who would never know what happened to me, who would just hear that a girl died in a car crash on I-95 and move on with their day. And I thought that's what Vernon does. He makes people disappear, not with trucks, with silence. The kitchen was very quiet. Trent's eyes were wet. I know what he did to you, Jesse said. Not the details, but I know the shape of it, and I know what it costs to carry it alone. But you don't have to carry it alone anymore. There's a lawyer named Colleen Merritt. She's good, she's real, and she's going to fight. A business card appeared on the counter. Gunnar had said it there without a word. Call her, Jesse said. Tell her your story. You don't have to decide anything today. Just talk to her. Trent stared at the card, picked it up, turned it over, put it down, picked it up again. Jesse stood on her crutches. Thank you for your time. They left. In the truck, Gunnar was quiet for a mile. Then he said that thing you said about the truck, about disappearing. Yeah, where did that come from? I don't know. It just seemed true. It was true. He looked at his daughter in the passenger seat, cast on her leg, bruises on her face, and something in his eyes that looked like the moment a parent realizes their child has become someone they didn't expect. Someone stronger. You did good in there, Jess. She didn't answer. She was looking out the window at the desert, passing by, already thinking about the next name on the list. They found two more that week. Bridget Nolan, 19, college student in Arizona. She wouldn't even open the door. Just spoke through it. I've moved on. Leave me alone. Jesse slid a letter under the door, handwritten, 3 pages, telling the whole story. 2 days later, Bridget called Colleen and submitted a written statement. Kyle Fontaine, 22, working as a mechanic in Las Vegas. He let them in, listened for 10 minutes, asked hard questions about what would happen, what the risks were, whether Vernon's lawyer would come after him. Jesse answered every one, honestly, without promises, without false comfort. I'll think about it, Kyle said. Not yes, but not no. He called the next day, said he'd testify in person. 3 witnesses, 3 people who had survived Vernon Briggs and were willing to say so out loud. It wasn't enough. Jesse knew it. Colleen knew it. But it was a start. Back in Nevada, Wyatt was staying at Gunner's house, a ranch-style place outside the city. 3 bedrooms, a garage full of motorcycle parts, a backyard that stretched into the desert. Big enough for Gunner, Jesse, and now Wyatt. There was a room that used to be Gunner's office. They cleared it out, put in a bed, a desk, a lamp. It wasn't much. It was more than Wyatt had ever had. Jessie was recovering. The cast was heavy and hot, and she got around on crutches that left bruises under her arms. But she didn't slow down. She couldn't, not with the clock running. "You're quiet," she said to Wyatt one evening. They were sitting on the back porch, stars overhead. Desert air cooling from the day's assault. The kind of night where the sky is so wide and so dark that you can see the arm of the Milky Way stretching from horizon to horizon like a road going nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Just thinking. About what? About how this ends. You win. That's how it ends. You don't know that? My dad doesn't lose. Wyatt looked at her. Vernon doesn't either. Jessie shifted on her crutches, lowered herself into the chair next to him. Her eyes were on the horizon where the last thin line of light was bleeding out of the sky. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you do it?" "Crawl under that truck." Wyatt thought about it. "I don't know. I just saw you trapped and I couldn't walk away. Most people would have. I'm not most people." "No, you're not." Jessie was quiet for a moment. "You know what I thought about when I was under there? When I thought I was going to die." "What?" "All the things I'd never do. Never paint the sunset over Red Rock. Never finish school. Never tell my dad I love him one more time. You can tell him now." "I did. About 50 times." She smiled. "He's getting annoyed." Wyatt almost laughed. Almost. "But the thing is," Jessie said, her voice shifting, growing serious. "I'm here because of you. I get to do all those things because you didn't walk away. So whatever happens with this legal situation, you need to know that mattered. You matter." Wyatt's throat felt tight. "Thanks. I mean it. And I'm going to make sure the whole world knows it too." She held up her phone, showed him the screen. Her video from the hospital had been shared 40,000 times. Comments were pouring in. People were donating to a legal fund that Colleen had set up. News outlets were calling. The story was growing. "You're doing all this," Wyatt said. "We're doing all this," she corrected him. "I'm just the one with the phone." But they both knew it was more than that. Jessie had become the voice of the campaign, not Gunner, not Colleen, not the bikers. Jessie, because she could say things that a biker gang couldn't. She could make people feel things that a lawyer's brief couldn't. She could tell the truth in a way that made strangers on the internet cry and share and donate and care. She was turning pain into power, and she was just getting started. The door opened. Gunner stepped out. "Wyatt, Colleen's on the phone. She needs to talk to you." Wyatt went inside, took the phone. "Wyatt, it's Colleen. I've got news. Trent Holloway called. He's willing to testify." Wyatt's heart jumped. "Seriously, seriously. And he's going to help us find the others." He stayed in touch with Bridget, thinks he can convince her to do more than a written statement. "What about Kyle?" "He called too. He's in." That's 3 people willing to stand up. It's a start. "But Wyatt, I need to prepare you." Vernon's lawyer filed a motion to dismiss the emergency custody. "They're arguing we have no concrete evidence, just allegations. But we have witnesses now, people willing to talk. Their testimony is powerful. But it's still words against words. We need something tangible. Medical records, photos, documents. Vernon was careful. He didn't leave evidence lying around. Then we find someone who saw something. A neighbor, a teacher, someone who noticed and didn't speak up. And if we can't, Colleen was quiet for a beat too long. Then we fight with what we have and we hope it's enough. Wyatt sat on the couch after the call. Gunnar sat across from him. You okay? I don't know. It feels like we're building something, but it also feels like it could all fall apart. It might, but we're not going down without a fight. Why are you doing this? Really? Gunnar leaned back, looked at the ceiling. You want the honest answer? Yeah, because I know what it's like to be alone, to have nobody in your corner. I grew up in the system too. Different, tamed, different state, but the same story. And when I aged out, I had nothing. No family, no support, just me and a motorcycle. How'd you end up here? Gunnar was quiet for a long time. The kind of quiet that means someone is deciding how much truth to let out. I was 14 when my mother died. Overdose. Found her on the kitchen floor when I came home from school. After that, it was group homes, foster placements, the whole circuit. 3 families in 2 years. The first one was fine until they had a baby of their own and decided they didn't need another mouth. The second one was worse. The third one was the kind of place where you learn to sleep with one eye open and keep your back to the wall. What happened? I aged out at 18. They give you a garbage bag for your stuff, a pamphlet about community resources, and a handshake. That's it. 18 years old with no education, no money, no skills, and a garbage bag full of clothes that didn't fit anymore. I slept under a bridge for 3 weeks, ate out at dumpsters behind fast food places, learned which ones throw out the food still warm. Wyatt said nothing. He didn't need to. He knew the shape of this story. He had been living inside it. Then one night, Gunnar continued, I was behind a Denny's going through the trash and this guy pulled up on a Harley. Big guy, full beer patches on his vest. Looked like the kind of person most people cross the street to avoid. He watched me for a minute. Then he said, you hungry? I figured he was gonna rob me. Didn't have anything worth taking, but I figured. Instead, he took me inside, sat me down at a booth, bought me a steak dinner. Didn't ask questions, didn't lecture me, just let me eat. And when I was done, he said, you got anywhere to sleep tonight? I said no. He said, come with me. I'll put you up for a night. That night turned into a week. The week turned into a month. The month turned into a life. His name was Barker. He ran a chapter out of Henderson. No kids of his own, never married. He taught me how to work on bikes, how to ride, how to be part of something bigger than yourself. He gave me a family. Barker, is he still around? Gunnar's jaw tightened. Died 6 years ago, heart attack. But before he went, he told me something I've never forgotten. He said, Gunnar, the world is full of people who walk past kids eating out of dumpsters. Don't be one of them. How'd you end up here? I found people who gave a damn. Brothers, not by blood, but by choice. They had my back when nobody else did. And I swore that if I ever had the chance to do that for someone else, I would. I'm not your responsibility. No, you're my choice. The words hit harder than Wyatt expected. He had never been anyone's choice before. He had been an assignment, a case number, a burden that got passed from hand to hand until someone like Vernon Briggs volunteered to carry it and used it as a weapon. Get some sleep, Gunnar said. Tomorrow we meet with Colleen. Start prepping for the hearing. That night, Wyatt's phone buzzed, unknown number. He almost didn't answer. The memory of Vernon's voice was still fresh, still cold, still curling around his spine like a snake. But something made him pick up. Hello, a young voice, small, scared, barely above a whisper. Is this Wyatt? Yeah, who is this? My name's Noah. I'm at Mr. Briggs's house. I found your number in his office. Wyatt's blood went cold. He sat up. The room was dark. The house was quiet. Noah, are you okay? I don't know. He's been acting weird since you left, asking me questions about you, about what you told people. What did you tell him? Nothing, I swear. But I'm scared. He's been looking at me funny. And yesterday he locked me in the storage shed for 3 hours. Noah, listen to me. You need to call your caseworker. Right now, I tried. She said I'm imagining things. That Mr. Briggs is a good man, then call the police. And tell them what? I don't have any proof. You didn't either, and they didn't believe you. Wyatt closed his eyes. The helplessness was physical, a weight on his chest that made it hard to breathe. He was 16 years old, sitting in a bedroom in Nevada, listening to a 12-year-old boy describe the beginning of something he knew the end of. Where is he right now? He went out, said he'd be back in an hour. That's why I called. Okay, listen, I'm going to give you a number, a lawyer. Her name's Colleen Merritt. You call her and tell her everything. Can you do that? Will it help? I don't know, but it's better than staying silent. Wyatt gave him the number, Noah. If he hurts you, if anything happens, you run, you understand, you get out of that house and you call 911, Bikbao. Where would I go? I'm 12, I've got no money, no family. I know it's hard, but you can't stay there if you're not safe. Silence on the line. Then quietly, did he hurt you bad? Wyatt closed his eyes. Yeah, I thought so. I saw the scars in the photos, the ones from the news. He's going to hurt you too if you don't get out. I know. Then make the call. Please. Okay, I will. The line went dead. Wyatt sat in the dark shaking. He wanted to drive to California right now. Break down Vernon's door, grab Noah and carry him out. But he was 16 and 3 states away and had no legal authority and no power and no ability to protect anyone, not even himself. He went to find Gunnar. Gunnar was in the garage working on a bike. The overhead light threw long shadows across the concrete floor. He looked up when Wyatt came in. What's wrong? Noah called me. The kid's still with Vernon. He's scared. Gunnar put down his wrench, wiped his hands on a rag. What did he say? Wyatt told him everything, the questions, the shed, the look in Vernon's eyes that Noah described, the same look Wyatt remembered, the look that came before the bad things started. Gunnar's jaw tightened. His hands curled slowly into fists, then released, then curled again. Did you tell Colleen? I gave Noah her number, told him to call. Good, but we need to do more. Like what? Like get that kid out of there before something happens. How? We don't have custody. We don't have legal standing in California. Gunnar looked at him. His eyes were hard. Legally, we can't do anything. But there are other ways. What are you saying? I'm saying I know people in California. People who owe me favors. People who can keep an eye on that house. Make sure that kid stays safe. You're talking about surveillance. I'm talking about protection. That could make things worse. If Vernon finds out, he won't. My people are professionals. Wyatt wanted to say yes, wanted Gunnar to send an army. But he knew the law, and the law didn't care about intentions. It won't hold up in court. Anything they see, anything they find, it'll be inadmissible. Maybe, but at least the kid will be alive to testify. The next morning, Colleen called. Noah had reached out. He called me at 2 a.m., shaking so hard I could barely understand him. But he gave me details. Locked in the shed with no light and no water. Meals withheld for days at a time. Emotional manipulation, telling Noah that his parents abandoned him because he was worthless, that nobody would ever want him, that Vernon was the only person in the world willing to put up with him. Classic abuser tactics. Textbook isolation and control. Did you report it? I contacted California CPS. They're sending someone to do a welfare check. They did that for me 3 times, Wyatt said. It never helped. This time will be different. I made it clear that if they don't take action, I'm going to the media. And the media loves stories about the system failing kids. Will they pull him out? I don't know, but I'm putting pressure on them. That's all I can do right now. 2 days later, the welfare check happened. The social worker spent 30 minutes at the house, talked to Noah, talked to Vernon, looked around. Vernon had cleaned the shed, put a padlock on it, told the social worker it was where he kept lawn equipment, showed her Noah's bedroom neat clean, a poster of a basketball player on the wall, made her coffee, called Noah buddy. The report read, no signs of abuse. Child appears healthy and well cared for. Allegations appear to be influenced by outside parties attempting to discredit foster parent. When Wyatt heard, he put his fist through the wall of his bedroom. The drywall caved around his knuckles. Pain shot up his arm. He didn't care. Jessie found him before Gunnar did. She heard the impact from the hallway, came in on her crutches, saw the hole in the wall, saw the blood on his hand. She didn't say calm down, didn't say it's going to be okay. She grabbed a towel from the bathroom and wrapped his knuckles and said, tell me. They didn't believe him, Wyatt said. Again, they never believe us. Jessie tied the towel tight. Then we make them believe. How? I've been working on something. She pulled out her phone. While you and Dad have been doing the legal stuff, I've been building something online. Look, she showed him. A social media campaign. A dedicated page with Wyatt's story, Trent's story, quotes from Bridget and Kyle, photos of the crash, the video from the hospital, everything organized, everything compelling, everything designed to reach as many people as possible. 42,000 followers, Jessie said. Growing every day. Donations to the legal fund just crossed $15,000. 3 news outlets have requested interviews. And every single comment is another person who sees what's happening and is angry about it. Wyatt stared at the screen. When did you do all this? When I couldn't sleep, which is most nights. She put the phone away. Vernon is winning because the system is designed to protect people like him. Quiet, behind closed doors, where nobody sees. So we stop being quiet. We make it loud. We make it so visible that the system can't pretend it's not happening. Gunnar appeared in the doorway, saw the hole in the wall, saw the towel on Wyatt's hand, didn't comment on either. I've got eyes on the house now, he said, round the clock. If Vernon so much as raises his voice, we'll know about it. And then what Wyatt said, we document it, build a pattern, show the court that this isn't isolated. It's systematic. Wyatt pulled his hand away from Jessie's grip. It won't be enough. You know it won't. Gunnar sat down next to him. You're right, it might not be. But I need you to understand something. We are fighting a system that's designed to protect itself, not kids. That system has power, resources, lawyers. All we have is the truth and each other. Then we've already lost. Jessie spoke from across the room. Her voice was sharp. We haven't lost. Don't you dare say that. Because that kid Noah, he's counting on you. And so are all the other kids who come after him. And I didn't almost die in a burning car just to watch the same system that almost killed me chew up another child. The room went quiet. Gunnar looked at his daughter. There it was again, that recognition. That moment of seeing someone become who they were meant to be. Jesse continued, Vernon is good at controlling the narrative behind closed doors, so we take it out of the dark. We put it everywhere, every platform, every news desk. We make it impossible for CPS to ignore. And if they still ignore it, then we go to the governor, we go to Congress, we go to whoever will listen, and we don't stop until someone does. She stood on her crutches, pulled out her phone, and started typing. What are you doing, Gunner asked. Writing a post. About Noah. No last name, no identifying details. Just enough to make people understand that this isn't one kid's story. It's a systems failure. The post went up that night. By morning, it had been shared 12,000 times. A state senator's office called Colleen asking for more information. A journalist from the Associated Press requested an interview with Jesse. The pressure was building, but so was the clock. Day 14 of 30, 16 days left. And Vernon Briggs' lawyer, a man named Vincent Cross, was fighting back hard. He got Trent Holloway's juvenile record unsealed, showed a history of disciplinary problems, painted him as unreliable. He dug into Bridget Nolan's past, found her prescriptions for anxiety and depression medication, argued she was emotionally unstable. He got Kyle Fontaine's DUI from 2 years ago entered into evidence, suggested he was making up stories for attention or sympathy. Every witness, every piece of testimony, Cross attacked it, methodically, surgically, with the calm precision of a man who had done this before and knew exactly where the cracks were. Colleen sat them all down on day 20. Wyatt, Jesse, Gunner, and the 3 witnesses on a conference call. I'm going to be honest with you. We're not winning. The words landed like stones. Vincent Cross is very good at his job. He systematically discredited every witness. The judge is skeptical. We need something they can't discredit, something concrete, like what Trent asked, like another victim who's currently in the system, who can testify to ongoing abuse, not something from years ago, something happening right now. Everyone looked at Wyatt. Noah, he said. Yes, but he's 12, and California has already cleared the house. Getting him to testify would require CPS to reverse their position, which they won't do without overwhelming evidence. Gunner spoke up. What if we had video? Everyone turned. My people in California, they've been watching the house. What if they caught something? Colleen's eyes sharpened. What kind of something? I don't know yet. But if they did, would it be admissible? Not if it was obtained illegally, but if it showed clear evidence of abuse or endangerment, I could use it to force CPS to act. And then Noah's testimony becomes legitimate. Gunner pulled out his phone, made a call. Tony, it's me. I need you to send me everything you've got from the surveillance. Everything. He hung up. How long, Colleen asked. An hour. They waited. Jesse sat in the kitchen with Wyatt. Neither spoke. The clock on the wall ticked. Jesse painted on a small canvas she'd set up on the table desert colors, burnt orange and deep violet. Her hands were steady even when nothing else was. 53 minutes later, Gunner's phone buzzed. He opened the file, watched. His face went dark. The kind of dark that comes before storms, before violence, before the moment a man decides he is done being patient. What is it? Wyatt asked. Gunner turned the phone around. The video was dark, grainy shot from across a chain-link fence. It showed the backyard of Vernon Briggs's house. Nighttime. A small figure was digging in the dirt, crying. The audio was poor but clear enough. Vernon's voice off-screen. Deeper. I told you to dig it deeper. Noah's voice broken. My hands hurt. Then dig faster. Please, Mr. Briggs, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. You're right. You won't. The video ended. The kitchen was silent. Jesse's brush had stopped. A drop of orange paint fell from the bristle onto the canvas and spread like a wound. When was this? Colleen asked through the phone. Last night. What was he digging? I don't know, but Tony's going back tonight. He's going to find out. Colleen's voice was tight. If this shows what I think it shows, we can get an emergency warrant. Pull Noah out tonight. And if it doesn't, then we use it to show a pattern of emotional abuse and forced labor. It's not physical violence, but making a child dig a hole in the dark while crying is still abuse. Any judge will see that. Jesse was staring at the frozen image on the phone screen. The small figure hunched over digging, crying. She knew what it felt like to be small and trapped and unable to escape. She had felt it under the truck. She felt it now. She said, "I'm posting this." Everyone looked at her. Not the raw video, not yet, but a description. What's happening to this child right now, tonight, while the state of California says everything is fine? Colleen hesitated. That could complicate the legal proceedings. The legal proceedings are failing. Jesse's voice was steady. You said it yourself. We're not winning in court, so we win in public. Gunnar looked at his daughter, then at Colleen, then back at Jesse. Do it, he said. Jesse wrote the post in 20 minutes. No names, no identifying details. Just the truth, a 12-year-old boy in a home the state had cleared, digging a hole in the dark while crying, and the man who was supposed to protect him standing over him, telling him to dig deeper. She published it at 10 p.m. By midnight, it had been shared 60,000 times. By 2 a.m., a California state senator had tagged the governor demanding answers. By 4 a.m., CPS's main phone line was overwhelmed with calls, but morning came with something worse. At 6 a.m., Gunnar's phone rang. Tony's voice was shaking. Boss, we've got a problem. What kind of problem? The hole. We went back to check it. It's filled in now. Did you dig it up? Yeah, silence. Tony, what was in the hole? A deal. Dead. Looks like it's been there a few days. There's a collar, says Max on it. Gunnar closed his eyes. And we found something else buried with it. A school photo. The kid's school photo. Vernon Briggs made a 12-year-old boy bury his own dog. Gunnar's hand curled into a fist, so tight his knuckles cracked. Send me everything. Photos, video, all of it. He hung up, looked at Wyatt. Noah had a dog. Wyatt nodded. His voice was barely a whisper. Max. He talked about him all the time. Said Max was the only friend he had. Jessie was standing in the doorway. She had heard everything. Her face was white. Her hands were shaking. But her voice when she spoke was controlled, focused, deadly calm in a way that reminded everyone in the room whose daughter she was. That's it. We're ending this. Today. Colleen was already on the phone with the Nevada District Attorney, filing for an emergency removal order. Cross-jurisdictional cooperation request with California. The evidence arrived at 7 a.m. Photos of the hole, photos of the no, the collar with Max engraved on a brass tag, the school photo dirt-stained and creased, a boy of 12 smiling at a camera with the kind of smile that doesn't know what's coming. Jessie posted the photos at 8 a.m., not of the dog, of the collar, of the school photo, of the filled-in hole, and she wrote, "This is what the state of California calls a safe home. This is what a foster father calls discipline. This is what a 12-year-old boy calls his life. How many more children have to suffer before someone listens?" The post went nuclear. 200,000 shares by noon. Every major news outlet picked it up. The governor's office issued a statement promising a full review. The warrant came through at 12:30 p.m. California police executed it at 2 p.m. They pulled Noah from the house, placed him in emergency protective custody. Vernon Briggs was arrested on charges of animal cruelty and child endangerment. He went quietly, smiled at the officers, said this is all a misunderstanding, said the dog died of natural causes, said the boy was helping him bury a beloved pet, said everything a man says when he has practiced his lies so many times they feel like truth. When Wyatt heard that Noah was safe, he didn't celebrate. He broke down. Not from relief, from guilt. Because he had gotten out and Noah had paid the price. Max had paid the price. And Wyatt couldn't shake the feeling that if he had never called Noah, if he had never given him Colleen's number, if he had never made Vernon feel threatened, then Max would still be alive and Noah would still be whole. Jesse found him on the porch at 3 in the morning. He'd been there for hours sitting in the dark staring at nothing. She didn't say anything at first, just sat down next to him. Let the silence stretch. Let the desert night settle around them like a blanket made of stars and cold air. And the kind of quiet that only exists when there's nothing left to say and everything left to feel. After a long time, Wyatt spoke. He killed the dog because of me. No, he killed that dog because he's a monster. That's not on you. I called Noah. I told him to reach out. I put a target on his back. You gave him a way out. There's a difference. Some way out. His dog's dead. He's in protective custody, traumatized for life, and he's alive and safe and away from Vernon Briggs. That's because of you. Wyatt finally looked at her. His eyes were red. You really believe that? Yeah, I do. She held his gaze. And so does Noah. He told Colleen that your phone call was the first time in 3 months that anyone told him his pain was real. You did that. Wyatt wiped his eyes with the back of his bandaged hand. What happens to him now? Colleen's working on it, trying to get him placed somewhere safe. What if they send him to another Vernon? They won't. Not with all the attention on this case. Not with us watching. You can't watch every kid in the system. No, but I can watch this one. Jesse's voice was firm. And so can you. And so can every single person who shared those posts and made those calls and refused to look away. That's what this is about. Not just Noah, not just you. It's about making the system afraid to fail. Wyatt was quiet for a while. Then he said, when did you become this person? Jesse smiled in the dark. Under a burning truck. When a stranger told me I wasn't going to die. I decided that if I got out, I was going to matter. That my life was going to mean something more than a car crash on the evening news. It does, Wyatt said. It means a lot. They sat together until the sun came up. Desert dawn, pink and gold and violet. The kind of sky Jesse would paint someday the morning after the longest night. As the light grew, Jesse said, you know what my mother used to tell me. She died when I was 11. Breast cancer. Took her in 7 months. Wyatt looked at her. I didn't know that. Yeah, she was a painter too. That's where I got it. And she used to say, Jesse, the world will try to make you small. It will try to make you quiet. Don't let it. She said the loudest thing you can do is refuse to disappear. Sounds like she knew what she was talking about. She did, and I forgot it for a while. After she died, I got quiet. Let my dad handle everything. Let the world shrink down to this house and these bikes and these people. And then a truck landed on my car and I remembered. Remembered what? That I'm my mother's daughter and she didn't raise me to be quiet. The sun broke over the ridge. The desert turned gold. Somewhere in the yard, a bird was singing a cactus wren, probably the kind that builds its nest in thorns because that's where it feels safest. Jessie stood, stretched, picked up her crutches. Come on, she said. We got a hearing in 48 hours, and I need to make about 10,000 strangers care enough to show up. You think that's possible? She looked at him. I think a kid crawled under a burning truck for a stranger. Anything's possible. They went inside. The house smelled like coffee. Gunnar was already up, already on the phone, already working. Noah was 48 hours from testifying, and they had 48 hours to make sure the world was watching when he did. Vernon made bail, $10,000 posted by a bail bondsman within 4 hours of his arrest. He walked out of jail at 6 p.m. Reporters swarmed him. Mr. Briggs, do you have a comment about the allegations? Vernon smiled, calm, confident, the mask firmly in place. These allegations are completely false. I've dedicated my life to helping troubled children. This is a coordinated attack by people who want to discredit the foster care system. What about the video? The dog? That video has been taken out of context. The dog died of natural causes. Noah was helping me bury it. We were mourning together. Why was he crying? Because he loved that dog. As did I. This entire situation has been twisted by people with an agenda. What agenda? Ask Gunnar Langford. Ask why a motorcycle gang is so interested in destroying my reputation. The interview went viral. By morning, the narrative was shifting. Some people started questioning whether the bikers had manipulated the evidence, whether this was really about protecting Wyatt or about a vendetta against the foster system. Colleen called an emergency meeting. Day 26. 4 days left. We've got a problem. Vernon is controlling the narrative. He's playing the victim, and it's working. How Gunnar demanded, we have video, we have witnesses, we have a dead dog, and he has a story about helping troubled kids. He's got character witnesses lining up. Former foster children who will say he saved their lives. Those kids are coached, Wyatt said. Maybe, but they're convincing, and the public is buying it. Jessie stood at the window. She had been quiet through most of the meeting, but Wyatt could see her thinking, could see the gears turning behind her eyes. She was looking out at the desert, at the hard, flat line of the horizon, and her reflection in the glass looked like someone making a decision that would cost her something. She turned around. We put Noah on the stand. Everyone went silent. He's 12 years old, Gunnar said. You want to put him through that? I don't want to, but he's the only witness who can speak to current, ongoing abuse. The others are years removed. Vernon's lawyer will argue they're disgruntled, resentful, but Noah is fresh, he's credible, and his testimony will be devastating. If he can handle it, Wyatt said, then we prep him, we make sure he's ready, we surround him with people who care, and we let him decide. Jessie looked at her father. This is his choice, not ours. We ask him. If he says no, we respect it. If he says yes, we protect him through it. Gunnar shook his head slowly. This is a lot to put on a kid. I know, but nobody asked him if he wanted to be put in Vernon's house. Nobody asked him if he wanted his dog killed. Nobody asked him anything. So we ask him now. We give him the one thing nobody ever gave him. What's that? A choice. They brought Noah in the next morning. He was staying in a temporary foster placement supervised by the state. He looked smaller than Wyatt remembered. Thinner, dark circles under his eyes. His hands were rough and scabbed from digging. Colleen sat across from him. Gentle, careful, the way you approach a bird with a broken wing. Noah, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Are you willing to testify in court, to tell the judge what happened with Mr. Briggs? Noah's hands started shaking. He pressed them between his knees. Will he be there? Yes, but he won't be able to hurt you. There will be guards, lawyers, your caseworker. What if he gets mad? He can't touch you, I promise. Noah looked at Wyatt. Did you testify? Yeah. Was it scary? Yeah. Did it help? Wyatt wanted to make it sound easy, wanted to give Noah the comfort of certainty, but he had learned that false comfort was just another form of lying to a kid who deserved better. I don't know yet, but I had to try. Noah was quiet. Then what if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing? Jessie knelt down in front of him, carefully because of her caste. She looked him in the eyes. There's no wrong thing. You just tell the truth. What you saw, what you felt, what happened. That's all anyone is asking. The other kids said nobody ever believes us. I believe you, Jessie said. And so does every person who shared your story. So does every person who called CPS and demanded answers. You're not alone in this. Not anymore. Noah looked down at his hands, the scabbed knuckles, the dirt that was still ground into his fingerprints, no matter how many times he washed them. Max was a good dog, he said, his voice cracked. He didn't deserve what happened. No, he didn't. Mr. Briggs said it was my fault. Said if I hadn't called that lawyer, Max would still be alive. Wyatt leaned forward. That's not true, how do you know? Because nothing you did caused that. Vernon hurt Max to punish you, to control you. That's what he does. To kids, to anyone he thinks belongs to him. Noah's eyes were wet. I just wanted help. And you got it. You're out. You're safe. And now you can help make sure he never does this to anyone else. Noah looked at Colleen. If I testify, will he go to jail? I can't promise that, but I can promise we'll do everything possible to make sure he never fosters another child. Noah wiped his eyes with his sleeve, looked at Wyatt, looked at Jessie, looked at the people in the room who had crossed state lines and broken rules and lost sleep for a boy they barely knew. Okay, he said, his voice was small but steady. I'll do it. Jessie put her hand on his shoulder. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Noah shook his head. No, the bravest person is the guy who crawled under a burning truck. Wyatt felt something tighten in his chest, not pain. Something else. Something that felt like being seen. The hearing was in 2 days, day 28 of 30. Everything they had built, the witnesses, the evidence, the social media campaign, the public pressure, all of it came down to one courtroom, one judge, and the testimony of a 12-year-old boy who had buried his best friend in the dark. Jessie spent the night before the hearing painting, not a sunset, not a desert landscape. She painted a pair of hands, small, dirty scrape digging in dark earth. She painted it in watercolors, the color bleeding into each other, the way pain bleeds into everything it touches. She finished at dawn, held it up to the light, then she set it aside and started getting ready for court. She chose her clothes carefully. No leather, no patches. A simple blue dress that made her look like exactly what she was, a young woman who had survived something terrible and refused to be defined by it. Gunnar saw her come down the stairs. He stopped, stared. You look like your mother, he said. Jessie smiled. Good. She was the toughest person you ever knew. Second toughest, Gunnar said. He looked at his daughter standing there on crutches in a blue dress, with bruises still fading on her arms and fire in her eyes. Second toughest. The courtroom was colder than Wyatt remembered. Or maybe it was just him. Maybe cold was what happened when everything you had built over 30 days came down to a single room and a single man in a black robe and the words of a 12-year-old boy who had already been failed by every adult in his life. He sat between Gunnar and Colleen at the petitioner's table. Jessie was in the first row of the gallery right behind him. She had left her crutches in the car. She was standing on her own, the cast still on her leg, but standing. The blue dress, the steady eyes. Behind her, filling every seat and lining the walls, 198 bikers. They had come from 3 states. Some had driven through the night. They wore clean shirts and pressed jeans and had removed every visible weapon. They sat with their hands folded and their backs straight, and they watched the proceedings with a kind of attention that turned a courtroom gallery into a wall. Across the aisle, Vernon Briggs sat at the defense table. Clean suit, neat hair, wire-rimmed glasses he didn't need. He looked like someone's grandfather, kind, gentle, the kind of man who coaches Little League and brings cookies to block parties, the kind of man nobody suspects. His lawyer, Vincent Cross, sat beside him, already reviewing his notes, already sharpening his strategy, already planning how to take apart every witness who stepped into the box. Judge Morrison entered. Everyone stood. He sat. They sat. The room held its breath. "I've read the briefs," Morrison said. "I've reviewed the evidence submitted by both parties. Let's hear from the witnesses. Ms. Merritt, proceed." Colleen called Trent Holloway first. Trent walked to the stand like a man walking into a room he'd spent years trying to forget existed. He was sworn in, sat down, looked straight ahead. Colleen walked him through it. Placed with Vernon at 15, the first month normal fine. Then the comments, then the punishments, missing meals, standing for hours. The belt, the cigarette burns, reporting it, being called a liar, being moved. "How did Vernon respond when you reported the abuse?" Colleen asked. Trent's voice was steady, controlled. "He sat down with my caseworker and explained that I had behavioral problems, that I was angry and defiant, that I was making up stories because I couldn't handle structure, and the caseworker believed him." Yes. Why do you think that is? Because Vernon is smart. He doesn't yell. He doesn't threaten. He just explains, calmly, reasonably, like he's the most patient man in the world. And when you're a caseworker with 50 files on your desk, you believe the calm man over the angry kid every time. Vincent Cross stood for cross-examination. He buttoned his jacket, approached the stand with a look of mild concern. "Mr. Holloway, isn't it true that you were expelled from 2 schools for violent behavior?" "That was before." "Yes or no?" "Yes. And didn't you once assault a teacher?" "I pushed her. I was 14 and she grabbed my arm." "So you admit to a pattern of violent behavior?" "I had reasons, yes or no?" Trent's jaw clenched. "Yes." Cross let the answer hang. Then he moved on to Bridget Nolan's written statement, reading it aloud, pausing at every point where Bridget described her anxiety, her medication, her inability to sleep. He called Kyle Fontaine to the stand and spent 15 minutes walking him through his DUI, his struggles with alcohol, his 3 months in a recovery program. Every witness, every piece of testimony. Cross took it apart like a man dismantling a clock gear by gear until what was left didn't tell time anymore. Then Colleen called Noah Kepler. The courtroom went still as the boy walked to the stand. He was wearing a collared shirt that was too big for him, borrowed from someone at the temporary foster home. His hair was combed but unruly. His shoes were scuffed. He looked impossibly small. The bailiff held the Bible. Noah put his hand on it. His fingers were trembling. "Do you swear to tell the truth?" "The whole truth and nothing but the truth, I do." His voice was barely audible. He sat down. His feet didn't touch the floor. Colleen approached gently, the way you approach something fragile and precious and about to break. "Noah, can you tell the court your full name?" Noah Marcus Kepler. How old are you? 12. And where are you currently living? A foster home. In California, a temporary one. And before that, with Mr. Briggs. How long did you live with Mr. Briggs? 3 months. Can you describe what that was like? Noah's voice was quiet. Judge Morrison leaned forward. The whole courtroom leaned forward. Every biker, every lawyer, every reporter with a notebook, every person in that room held their breath and listened to a 12-year-old boy describe the architecture of cruelty. At first, it was okay. He was nice, made me dinner, asked about school, gave me a dog, said every boy should have a dog. When did things change? After about a week, he started getting mad at little things. If I left a dish in the sink, if I talked too loud during his TV shows, if I asked too many questions, he said I needed to learn respect. What would happen when he got mad? He'd make me stand in the corner, sometimes for hours. He'd take away my meals, said I didn't deserve to eat if I couldn't follow rules. Did he ever hurt you physically? He grabbed my arm once, left a bruise, and he locked me in the storage shed. How many times? 5 or 6, I lost count. What was the storage shed like? Dark, cold at night, hot during the day. There were spiders. I'm scared of spiders. He knew that. How long would he leave you there? Sometimes an hour, sometimes longer. Once it was all night. Why did he put you there? Because I called someone, a lawyer. I asked for help. And what happened after that? Noah's voice broke. The sound was small, private, the kind of breaking that happens in a room full of people watching. He killed Max. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Morrison called for order. Colleen waited, gave Noah time. Who was Max? My dog. Mr. Briggs gave him to me when I first got there. Said every boy should have a dog. He was brown and white, a mutt. He liked to sleep on my bed. What happened to Max? Mr. Briggs said I broke the rules, that there were consequences. He took Max outside. I heard him yelp, then nothing. What did Mr. Briggs tell you? That Max was dead, that it was my fault, that if I hadn't called that lawyer, Max would still be alive. What did he make you do? Dig a hole. In the backyard, at night, he stood over me and told me to dig deeper. I was crying and he said, dig faster. And in the video that was submitted to this court, you're crying. Do you remember that? Yeah, I couldn't stop. Mr. Briggs kept telling me to dig deeper. Said if I didn't finish, he'd make me sleep in the hole with Max. The courtroom was dead silent, not the silence of emptiness, the silence of 200 people who had stopped breathing at the same time. Colleen stepped back. No further questions. Vincent Cross stood. He buttoned his jacket, walked toward Noah with a smile that was calibrated to look warm and fatherly, and was neither. Noah, that must have been very upsetting. Yeah, losing a pet is hard. I lost a dog when I was your age. Cried for weeks. Noah didn't respond. He looked at Cross the way an animal looks at something it recognizes as dangerous, not with fear, but with a very old kind of knowing. Now, Noah, you said Mr. Briggs killed Max. Did you see him kill the dog? No, you didn't see it. So you don't actually know what happened, do you? I know Max was alive and then he wasn't. Dogs die, Noah, especially outdoor dogs. They get into things, eat poison, get hit by cars. Isn't it possible Max died of natural causes? No, Mr. Briggs said. Noah's voice cut through the courtroom with a clarity that made Cross stop mid-sentence. I know what Mr. Briggs said. He says a lot of things. He said I was special. He said he'd take care of me. He said Max would always be there. He said all the right things to everyone. And then when the door closed and nobody was watching, he was a different person. Cross recovered. That's a very mature thing to say. Almost like someone coached you. Nobody coached me. Are you sure? Because a lot of adults have been talking to you recently. A lawyer, a biker gang, older kids who have their own axe to grind. Isn't it possible they influenced you? No, you called a lawyer because you were upset about Mr. Briggs's rules. Isn't that right? I called because he locks me in a shed and starves me and killed my dog. Cross-pressed. Where are your injuries, Noah? Do you have bruises, broken bones, hospital records? No. So you're asking this court to believe that Mr. Briggs, a man who has fostered 17 children over 6 years with zero complaints, suddenly decided to abuse you specifically. He didn't do it suddenly. He did it slowly. And he didn't just do it to me. He did it to Wyatt and Trent and the others. Cross smiled. All people with documented issues. All people with a history of— Noah's voice rose for the first time. A history of being hurt by him and not being believed. That's our history. That's what we all have in common. Not being believed. The gallery stirred. Several bikers nodded. Jessie's hand was gripping the railing in front of her so hard her knuckles were white. Cross recovered his composure. No further questions. Noah left the stand. His legs were shaking. The bailiff had to help him down. But his eyes were dry. He had cried his last tears for Vernon Briggs in a dark backyard over a shallow grave, and he had none left for this courtroom. Colleen caught Wyatt's eye, nodded slightly. The boy had done more than survive the stand. He had turned it into a weapon. The defense called their witnesses, 3 former foster children who had thrived under Vernon's care. All adults now, all successful, all saying the same things with the same cadence like songs learned from the same hymnal. He gave me structure when I had none, one said. He believed in me when nobody else did, said another. I wouldn't be where I am today without Mr. Briggs, said the third. Then Vernon took the stand. Cross walked him through his history, 20 years working with troubled youth, 17 successful placements, awards from the county, commendations from social workers, photos of smiling children at birthday parties and graduations. Mr. Briggs, these are serious allegations. How do you respond? Vernon's voice was measured, controlled. The voice of a man who had rehearsed this moment in the mirror and perfected every note. It breaks my heart. I've devoted my life to helping children who have nowhere else to go. Children who've been abandoned, abused, neglected by everyone else. I give them a home, structure, consistency, and this is how I'm repaid. What about the video of Noah burying the dog? That dog was old and sick. He died in the yard. Noah was heartbroken. I let him bury Max in the backyard so he could say goodbye. The tears you see, that's grief, not fear. In the storage shed. There is no basement in my house. It's a single-story ranch. There's a storage shed in the back. Noah got in trouble for going through my personal belongings. He was sent to his room. He's a 12-year-old boy who's exaggerating because he's angry he got caught. It was smooth, seamless. Vernon spoke the way water runs downhill, naturally, inevitably, as if any other direction were impossible. Wyatt could see members of the gallery nodding, could see the doubt settling over the room like fog. Colleen stood for cross-examination. Mr. Briggs, you said you fostered 17 children. How many of those children reported abuse? 3. And all 3 investigations found no evidence of wrongdoing. Correct, because there was no wrongdoing. Or because the investigators believed you over the children. Cross stood. Objection, speculation, sustained. Colleen didn't slow down. You said Noah was grief-stricken over the dog. If that's true, why did you make him dig the hole alone, in the dark, while crying? I didn't make him. He wanted to. Really? Because the video shows you telling him to dig deeper, in a tone that doesn't sound like comfort. I was helping him create a proper resting place for his pet. That's what responsible adults do. Responsible adults don't make children dig graves at night while sobbing. Objection. Argumentative. Withdrawn. Mr. Briggs, how many current foster children do you have? None. After Wyatt ran away and started these false accusations, the state temporarily suspended new placements. So you have no children in your care right now. Correct. And isn't it true that this suspension came before Noah's allegations, before the dog incident? Because the state was already investigating you based on a pattern of complaints. Vernon's calm flickered. Just for a moment, a crack in the mask that was there and then gone. They were reviewing my file. That's standard procedure that happened to coincide with multiple abuse allegations from multiple children placed in your home over a period of 6 years. That's quite a coincidence. I'll allow it, Morrison said. Answer the question, Mr. Briggs. I've done nothing wrong. Then why did you call Wyatt Holden after the court granted him temporary custody? Why did you threaten him? I didn't threaten anyone. Colleen pulled out her phone. Your Honor, I have a recording of that phone call. Mr. Briggs told Wyatt, and I quote, "You're mine, you've always been mine." The courtroom erupted. Morrison gavelled for order. Cross was on his feet. Your Honor, that recording is inadmissible. It was obtained without consent. Nevada is a one-party consent state. Wyatt had every right to record that call. Morrison looked at the phone, then at Vernon. I'll allow it. Play it. Colleen played the recording. Vernon's voice filled the courtroom. Cold, possessive, stripped of every pretense. The grandfather disappeared. The coach disappeared. The patient foster father disappeared. What was left was the voice of a man who believed children were property and disobedience was a personal insult. When the recording ended, the room was different. The air was different. The way people looked at Vernon was different. Colleen stepped closer to the witness stand. That doesn't sound like a concerned foster parent. That sounds like someone who views children as things he owns. I was upset. I chose my words poorly. Or you revealed who you really are. The man behind the awards and the commendations and the birthday party photos. Objection. Sustained, Miss Merritt. Do you have any further questions? Just one. Colleen looked at Vernon directly. If you're innocent, if all these children are lying, why are you fighting so hard to get them back? Why not let them go? Move on. Foster other children who actually want to be with you. Vernon's eyes changed. The warmth drained out of them. What was left was cold and flat and bottomless. Because they're my responsibility, and I don't abandon my responsibilities. Even when your responsibilities are terrified of you. Objection. Withdrawn. No further questions. The trial recessed. Closing arguments would follow. Outside the courtroom, Wyatt found Noah sitting on a bench alone. The borrowed shirt was untucked. His hands were in his lap. He was looking at the floor, at the scuffed tiles, the way Wyatt used to look at floors, like they were safer to study than faces. Hey, Noah looked up, swollen eyes, pale skin, but something else, something that hadn't been there before. A steadiness, a calm that comes not from peace, but from having already survived the worst thing and knowing you're still standing. I messed up, didn't I? No, you did great. I got confused on one of the questions, and that lawyer made me sound like a liar. That's his job, making people doubt themselves. You told the truth. That's all that matters. What if they don't believe me? Wyatt sat down next to him. Then we keep fighting. We keep telling the truth until someone listens. I'm tired of fighting. Yeah, me too. They sat in silence. Two boys who had been failed by the same man and the same system sitting on a wooden bench in a courthouse hallway, waiting for a stranger in a robe to decide their futures. Then Noah said, "Do you think we'll win?" "I don't know, but I know we're not giving up." Noah nodded. "Okay." Jessie came through the doors. She had been on the phone in the hallway doing an interview with a reporter, giving quotes, controlling the narrative, the way she had learned to do over the past 28 days. She sat down on Noah's other side. "You were incredible in there," she said. "I don't feel incredible." That's how you know it's real. The people who feel incredible are usually the ones performing. "You were just being honest." Noah looked at her. "Your leg is getting better." "Yeah, slowly." "Does it still hurt?" "Sometimes. But I've got good people taking care of me." She put her hand on his shoulder. "Like you do." The closing arguments came next. Vincent Cross went first. He stood in the center of the courtroom and delivered his performance with the polish of a man who billed $400 an hour and earned every penny. "This case is about fear," he said, "not fear of Vernon Briggs, fear of being wrong. These young people have convinced themselves that a good man is a monster because that narrative is easier than accepting responsibility for their own choices." Wyatt Holden ran away because he couldn't handle structure. Trent Holloway has a documented history of dishonesty. Noah Kepler is a traumatized child who misinterpreted discipline as abuse. He walked to the evidence table, picked up a photo of Vernon surrounded by smiling children. This is who Vernon Briggs is, a man who has given his life to helping the forgotten, the unwanted, the children nobody else would take. And how does our society thank him? By dragging him through court based on the word of troubled teenagers and a motorcycle gang with an agenda. He set the photo down. The prosecution wants you to believe that 17 successful placements mean nothing, that decades of service mean nothing, and that awards and commendations mean nothing. Why? Because a few angry young people said so. He looked at the judge. "That's not justice. That's a mob." He sat down. Colleen stood. She didn't rush. She let the silence stretch. Let Cross's words settle over the room so everyone could feel their weight. Then she began. "Mr. Cross is right about one thing. This case is about fear." She walked to the center of the room, but not the kind he described. It's about the fear a child feels when the person who is supposed to protect them becomes the one they need protection from. She turned to face Vernon. Vernon Briggs is very good at what he does. Not fostering, not helping children, manipulating systems designed to protect them. He knows exactly what to say, how to present himself, how to make investigators see what he wants them to see. She pulled out the folder, the photos, the timeline. But he made mistakes. The recording where he told Wyatt, "You're mine." The video of Noah digging a grave for his dog while being told to dig deeper. The pattern of allegations spanning 6 years and 7 children. Mr. Cross asked you to consider Vernon Briggs's 17 successful placements. I ask you to consider the 7 who reported abuse, the 3 who were investigated and dismissed, the 4 who never reported because they knew nobody would listen. She walked to where Wyatt sat, stood beside him. Wyatt Holden is 16 years old. He crawled under a burning truck to save a stranger's life. He risked everything for a girl he had never met. And Mr. Cross wants you to believe this boy is a liar, that he invented abuse for attention. She moved to Noah, who was sitting in the gallery beside a court-appointed advocate. Noah Kepler is 12. He buried his best friend in the dark. He stood on that witness stand and told the truth while a grown man's lawyer tried to make him doubt his own reality. And he didn't break. Because the truth doesn't break. It bends. It gets buried. It gets ignored. But it doesn't break. Her voice cracked slightly. She let it. If we send Wyatt back, if we say these allegations don't matter, we're telling every child in foster care that their pain doesn't matter, that their fear doesn't matter, that they don't matter. She walked back to her table. Vernon Briggs is not the victim here. He never was. She sat down. Judge Morrison took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes. He looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. I'll recess for 1 hour to review the evidence. We'll reconvene for my decision. The wait was agony. Wyatt paced the hallway. Gunnar made phone calls. Colleen reviewed her notes with the focused intensity of a surgeon checking instruments. Jessie sat with Noah. She was showing him something on her phone, the paintings she had done, the desert, sunsets, the watercolors. Noah was almost smiling. It was the first time Wyatt had ever seen him almost smile, and it was the most fragile, necessary thing he had ever witnessed. What happens if we lose? Noah asked. Jessie looked at him. We don't lose. But what if? Then we fight louder. Jessie's voice was steady. We appeal. We make noise. We take it to every news desk and every social media platform and every person with a conscience until someone with power does the right thing. What happens to me? You stay safe. That's non-negotiable. No matter what the judge says, I promise you that. Noah looked at her. The way a child looks at someone they are deciding whether to trust. The way a child looks at the last person standing between them and the dark. Then he nodded. The bailiff called them back. The gallery filled. Every seat, standing room only, 198 bikers shoulder to shoulder filling the back of the courtroom like a wall of worn leather and quiet conviction. Judge Morrison entered. Everyone stood. He sat. They sat. The room held its breath. I've reviewed all testimony, all evidence, both closing arguments. This is one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make in 23 years on the bench. He looked at Vernon, then at Wyatt, then at Noah. On one hand, we have a man with decades of service, documented success stories, community support, character witnesses. On the other hand, we have multiple allegations spanning several years. A recording that shows concerning behavior, physical evidence of animal cruelty, and testimony from children who are clearly unmistakably traumatized. He paused. Mr. Cross argued that these children have behavioral issues, that they are unreliable witnesses. And legally he has a point. Wyatt's heart stopped. But I keep coming back to one question. Morrison leaned forward. Why would multiple children who don't know each other, who were placed in this home years apart, all tell the same story? Why would they risk public scrutiny, cross-examination, and character assassination unless something real happened to them? Cross started to stand. Morrison's hand went up. I'm not finished. The room went still. I've also considered the evidence. The video of Noah Kepler burying his dog while being told to dig deeper. The medical records from Wyatt Holden showing injuries consistent with long-term physical abuse. The recording of Mr. Briggs speaking to Wyatt in a manner that can only be described as possessive and threatening. He looked at Vernon directly. Mr. Briggs, you presented yourself as a victim of false accusations. But victims don't threaten the people accusing them. They don't call them late at night. They don't tell them you're mine. The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that precedes verdicts and earthquakes and the moments that change everything. Therefore, I am ruling in favor of the petitioners. Wyatt Holden's emergency custody under Gunnar Langford is made permanent pending formal adoption proceedings. Vernon Briggs's fostering license is permanently revoked. And I am recommending a full criminal investigation into all allegations of abuse. The gallery erupted. Bikers stood. Someone shouted. Someone cried. The sound was enormous, filling the courtroom, spilling into the hallway, rolling through the building like thunder. Vernon's face went pale, then red. He stood. "This is outrageous. You're destroying my life based on lies. Mr. Briggs, sit down. I gave my life to those children. And this is how bailiff." Vernon lunged across the table, not at the judge, at Wyatt. His hand reached for the boy who had started it all, the boy who had crawled under a truck and crawled it out from under Vernon's control. "You little, I made you. I fed you. I gave you a home. You're nothing without me. Nothing." Three bailiffs grabbed him. Vernon was screaming as they dragged him toward the side door. His mask was gone, completely gone. What was underneath was ugly and desperate, and exactly what every witness had described. "You'll always be nothing. You hear me? All of you, nothing." The doors closed. His voice faded. Wyatt sat frozen. He could not process what had happened, could not breathe, could not move. Then arms wrapped around him. Gunnar, pulling him close, holding him the way a father holds a son, which was what they were now or about to be. "It's over. You're safe. You're mine now, legally, officially." Wyatt broke. Not from fear, not even from relief, from something bigger, something that had been locked inside him since he was 4 years old, and his mother died and the world became a series of rooms he didn't belong in. He cried, and Gunnar held him, and the bikers surrounded them both. And for the first time in Wyatt Holden's life, the walls that closed in weren't trapping him. They were protecting him. Noah ran over, threw his arms around Wyatt. "We won. We actually won." "Yeah," Wyatt managed. "We did." Jessie was there too, crying, smiling, her hand on her father's back, her phone in her pocket for once. Because some moments don't need to be recorded. They need to be felt. Outside the courthouse, the media swarmed. Cameras, microphones, shouted questions. Jessie stepped forward. Not Gunnar, not Colleen, Jessie. She had earned this. She had built the campaign, found the witnesses, told the story, kept the pressure alive when the system wanted it to die. The bikers made space. The cameras focused. And Jessie Langford spoke. 29 days ago, I was trapped under a burning truck. A boy I'd never met crawled under and saved my life. Today we saved his. Not because we're special, not because we're heroes, but because we refused to look away. Because we chose to believe a child who said he was hurting. Because we decided that one kid's safety mattered more than one system's comfort. A reporter shouted, "What happens now?" Now we make sure this never happens again. My father and I are starting a foundation, Langford Foster Advocacy. We're going to watch the system, investigate complaints that get ignored, give kids a voice when nobody else will. "Why you?" Jessie smiled. It was her mother's smile, hard and warm and unbreakable. "Because I know what it feels like to be trapped and to have someone come for you. And I know what it feels like when nobody comes." Both of those things are true, and both of those things are reasons to fight. Inside the courthouse, prosecutors were already filing charges against Vernon Briggs. Animal cruelty, child endangerment, 7 counts, 1 for each victim who had come forward. Darlene Cross, the CPS agent from California, found Wyatt in the hallway. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For almost sending you back, for hesitating, for believing the paperwork over my gut. You helped in the end. That's what matters. I could have helped sooner. She handed him a card. If you or any kid you know ever needs someone to listen, call me, day or night. Wyatt took the card. What happens to Noah? We're looking for a placement, somewhere safe, far from Vernon Briggs. Gunnar stepped forward. His voice was quiet, certain. The voice of a man who had already made up his mind and was only telling you the result. I'll take him. Darlene blinked. You want to foster Noah? If he wants me to. Noah looked up. He had been standing behind Wyatt, half hidden the way children learn to make themselves small when the world is too big and too loud. But now he stepped forward. Really, really, you and Wyatt, legal brothers. Noah's face crumpled, not from sadness, from the sudden, overwhelming experience of being wanted, of hearing someone say your name and mean it, of being chosen not as an assignment, not as a case number, but as a son. He nodded, couldn't speak. I'll start the paperwork, Darlene said softly. Her eyes were wet. 20 years of this job, and this was the moment that made it mean something. The criminal trial took 4 months. Vernon Briggs was convicted on 5 of 7 counts, sentenced to 6 years. Not enough, Wyatt thought. Not for what he had done. Not for the years of fear and silence and scars that didn't fade. But more than most abusers ever got. More than the system usually delivered. More than nothing, which was what children like him had learned to expect. The adoption went through 3 weeks after the verdict. Judge Morrison presiding again. When the gavel came down, Gunnar Langford became the legal father of Wyatt Holden and Noah Kepler. The bikers in the gallery stood. Some of them were crying. These were men who had done hard things and lived hard lives and were not by any reasonable definition soft. But they stood there with wet eyes and clenched jaws and watched a family get built from wreckage, and they were moved by it. The bikers threw a celebration that lasted 2 days. Music in the yard, barbecue smoke rising into the desert sky, speeches that were too long and too loud and exactly right. Someone had gotten a cake that said, "Welcome home," in blue frosting, and Noah ate 3 pieces because he could, because there was enough, because nobody was going to take it away. Cole, the older biker who had sat with Wyatt in the hospital lobby on the first night, brought a framed photo. It was the news image from the crash, Wyatt and Jesse covered in blood and dust, the truck burning behind them. He had it mounted with a brass plate that read, "The day everything changed." Gunnar hung it in the hallway between Noah's school picture and a painting Jesse had done of the 4 of them on their bikes riding into a sunset she had finally gotten right. That first night, as a legal family, they sat around the kitchen table. Gunnar made spaghetti, the only thing he knew how to cook that didn't involve a grill. The pasta was overcooked and the sauce was from a jar, and it was the best meal any of them had ever had. Noah ate seconds, then thirds. Nobody told him to slow down. Nobody counted what was on his plate. He looked at Wyatt across the table and said, "Is this what it's always like?" "Yeah," Wyatt said. "This is what it's always like." It wasn't. Not yet. There would be hard days, nightmares, flinching at loud noises, the sound of a door closing too hard, sending someone back to a place they thought they'd left. But the hard days would have people in them. People who stayed, people who didn't leave when things got difficult. And that made all the difference. Trent Holloway showed up. So did Kyle Fontaine and Bridget Nolan, the witnesses who had put their pain on public display to save children they had never met. "You doing okay?" Trent asked Wyatt. "Yeah. You?" "Better. Testifying was the hardest thing I've ever done. But worth it. I got calls from 3 other kids who were with Vernon. They're coming forward too." "Good. Yeah, good." Trent paused. We're survivors, man, not victims. Survivors. Jesse organized the launch event for the Langford Foster Advocacy Foundation 6 months after the trial. 50 reporters, 100 supporters. Every biker who had stood in that hospital lobby, who had filled that courtroom, who had formed a wall around two boys and said, "Not on our watch." They all came back because this wasn't just about Wyatt and Noah anymore. It was about every kid in every state who was trapped in a house that looked fine from the outside and was hell on the inside. Jessie stood at the podium. She had practiced the speech, written it out, memorized the key points. But when she got to the microphone, the prepared words felt wrong, too polished, too safe, too much like the kind of speech someone gives when they want to sound good instead of being honest. So she told the truth. 6 months ago, a truck landed on my car. I was trapped, pinned, dying, and a boy I'd never met crawled under that wreckage and said, "I'm not leaving you." She looked at Wyatt in the front row, Gunner beside him, Noah beside Gunner, her family, built from ashes and steel and the stubborn refusal to look away. That boy saved my life. And then I learned that the system that was supposed to protect him had failed him. Over and over, 3 investigations, 3 dismissals, 3 times the adults chose the easy answer over the right one. And I decided that if a 16-year-old could crawl under a burning truck for a stranger, then I could fight for him, and for every kid like him. Her voice steadied. If you're in foster care and you're scared, know this. You're not alone. You're not nothing. And there are people who will fight for you. People like my father who knows what it means to have nobody and to choose to be somebody's everything. People like Colleen who took a case nobody wanted and fought like hell. People like Trent and Bridget and Kyle who spoke up even when it cost them. People like Noah who told the truth when a grown man's lawyer tried to make him doubt his own memory. She pulled out the painting she had done, the one of the hands digging in dark earth. She held it up so the whole room could see it. Small hands, scraped knuckles, dark soil, the colors bleeding into each other like bruises. This is what failure looks like. A child alone in the dark, burying his best friend, while the system that was supposed to protect him looked the other way. We're going to change that. Not with speeches, with action. We're going to find every kid in a bad placement, every complaint that gets buried, every Vernon Briggs hiding behind a clean file and a practiced smile. And we're going to make noise until something changes. The crowd stood, applauded. Some were crying, some were shouting. The bikers rumbled their approval in a sound that shook the floor and the walls and the part of you that knows when something important is happening. Jessie stepped back from the podium. Gunner put his arm around her. "You did good, Jess." She leaned into him. "I learned from the best." 3 years later, Jessie stood on the same highway where it all began. Mile marker 143. The spot where the truck had flipped, where a girl had screamed, where a runaway kid had made a choice that changed everything. There was a memorial now, a small stone marker set back from the shoulder surrounded by desert wildflowers that bloomed every spring. The plaque read, "In memory of Max," in honor of the children who found their voices. Noah had suggested it, said Max deserved to be remembered, said the flowers should be welded, not planted, because Max had been wild too. A mutt who slept on a boy's bed and made a dark house feel less dark until the man who owned the house decided that love was a weapon and used it accordingly. Jessie heard engines behind her, turned. Gunner rode up on his Harley. Beside him on a restored Sportster, Wyatt, 19 now, taller, broader, starting community college in the fall, studying criminal justice, planning to become a child advocate. The scars on his back had faded but hadn't disappeared, and he didn't want them to. They were proof, evidence, testimony written on skin. And next to Wyatt on a matte black lowrider that he'd rebuilt himself in Gunner's garage, Noah. 15. Stronger than he'd been, still quiet, still cautious, but with something in his eyes that hadn't been there 3 years ago, the steady, unshakable look of a boy who knew he was wanted, who had a room with his name on the door, and a family that didn't come with conditions, and a future that wasn't a threat. Gunner killed his engine. You ready? Jesse looked at the memorial, at the highway stretching in both directions, at the desert sky bleeding red and gold the way it always did at this hour, the way she had tried to paint 100 times and would try 100 more. She had never gotten it right. The sky was always more than she could capture, but she kept trying because that was the point. You keep trying, you keep painting, you keep showing up at the canvas, even when the colors don't match what you see. The Langford Foster Advocacy Foundation had helped 83 kids escape bad placements, gotten 12 abusive foster parents prosecuted, changed 3 state laws about investigation protocols. Vernon Briggs was in year 3 of his sentence. 5 other foster parents had been arrested using the same investigative model Jesse's foundation pioneered. Trent Holloway was training to be a social worker. Bridget Nolan was speaking at universities about foster care reform. Kyle Fontaine ran a halfway house for kids aging out of the system. Darlene Cross had become a consultant for the foundation, bringing 20 years of system knowledge and a gut instinct that had finally found a home. And Jessie Langford, the girl who had been trapped under a burning truck, who had picked up a phone from a hospital bed and decided the world needed to see the truth, who had limped on crutches to a stranger's door and said please, was finishing her degree in social work. First in her class, already getting job offers from 3 states, she had turned down all of them. She was staying in Nevada, building the foundation, painting sunsets, riding her motorcycle on highways where the sky was so big it made everything else feel manageable. Yeah, she said, I'm ready. She swung onto her bike, kicked the engine to life. The rumble joined the others, 4 engines, 4 heartbeats, 1 family. They rode, not away from anything, towards something. A future none of them had thought possible 3 years ago, when a truck crossed a median and a boy crossed a highway and a girl trapped in burning wreckage reached out her hand and found someone reaching back. Jessie led the way. She always did now. Not because Gunner couldn't, not because Wyatt and Noah didn't know the road, but because she had earned it. Mile by mile, post by post, witness by witness, hearing by hearing. She had earned the right to ride in front and choose the direction. The desert stretched out ahead of them, endless and open, and full of the kind of light that painters chase their whole lives. Wind in her face, family beside her. The road unspooling beneath her wheels like a promise being kept. She wasn't the girl under the truck anymore. She was the woman who had climbed out and decided that no one should have to wait as long as she did for someone to come. Behind her, Wyatt rode steady. The boy who had said, I'm not leaving her, had become a man who meant it about everyone. He carried the scars. He carried the memories. He carried the sound of Vernon's voice saying, you're mine in the dark. But he also carried something else now, the weight of being chosen. The weight of belonging, the weight of a last name that someone had given him, not because the state required it, but because a man on a Harley had looked at him and said, you're my choice. Behind him, Noah, the boy who had buried his best friend in the dark, had learned that the dark doesn't last. That morning comes, that the people who love you will stand between you and anyone who tries to put you back in the hole. He still dreamed about Max sometimes, still woke up with dirt under his fingernails that wasn't there. But he also woke up in a house where breakfast was on the table and nobody was counting what he ate, and the door was never locked from the outside. And Gunnar bringing up the rear, watching his family right ahead of him. The man who had grown up alone in the system and had built from wreckage and chrome and stubborn love the thing he never had. A home, not a house, not a placement, not a temporary arrangement that could be revoked with a phone call and a form. A home, the kind that exists not in walls and rooms but in the space between people who have decided against all evidence and all odds to hold on to each other. They rode toward the horizon, not alone, never alone again, and every mile that passed was a mile further from who they had been and closer to who they were becoming. The girl who had said, "Help me," had become the woman who said, "I'll help you." The boy who had said, "I'm not leaving," had become the man who never did. The child who had said, "Nobody believes me," had become the young man who made sure everyone listened. And the father who had said, "You're my choice," had proven that choice every single day, with every meal cooked and every door left unlocked and every mile ridden side by side on a highway that stretched from the worst day of their lives to the best. Jesse twisted the throttle. The bike surged forward. The others followed. Somewhere behind them, the memorial sat in the desert sun. The wildflowers swayed. The plaque caught the light. In memory of Max, in honor of the children who found their voices. And ahead of them the road went on, open, endless, full of the kind of possibility that only exists when you have survived something you shouldn't have and come out the other side with people who would do it all again. The desert swallowed the sound of their engines and gave back only silence and sky, and the road went on.